Okay, so you're running your online store. You try to keep up, keep things fresh, make those sales happen, right?
Hmm.
But lately, maybe especially if you're on Poshmark, it feels like things are shifting. A bit unstable, maybe?
Absolutely. There's been a lot of chatter, in the seller communities about these new Poshmark relisting rules. We've been digging into it.
Yeah. What have you looked at?
Well, seller emails, forum discussions, even communications from some of the tools sellers use, like Sidekick tools. They're a trusted automation software, and they've been sharing updates on how things are changing, trying to get the full picture.
Okay, makes sense. So our mission here, let's try and cut through that noise.
Hmm.
What's actually changed with Poshmark? What does it mean for you, the seller listening? Any surprising bits we need to know?
Yeah, let's do that.
Let's start with the big one everyone's talking about, this 60-day rule. What's the deal there?
Right. So the core change, it's this policy they called excessive listing removal, rolled out May 1st. And the gist of it is there's now this 60-day window. If you delete a listing, you really shouldn't relist that same item again for at least 60 days.
60 days. And if you do it sooner?
Well, that's where the risk comes in. You could face penalties. Poshmark's cracking down on that quick delete relist cycle.
Penalties.
Okay.
Okay, that definitely gets your attention. So what can you still do within that 60-day period, like normal stuff?
Yeah, good question. You can definitely still refresh older listings, ones that are past 60 days.
Mhm.
Update photos, tweak the description, drop the price, send offers to likers.
The usual ways to bump things up.
Exactly, that's all fine. The restriction is really specifically about deleting and then immediately, or well, quickly relisting before that 60-day mark.
Gotcha. And what about that copy listing feature? Lots of people use that as a kind of relist.
Right. Poshmark's official line now is that you should really only use copy listing after the 60 days are up for the original item.
Okay. But what about cross-listing? You sell something on eBay, you got to delete it from Poshmark, right? That seems pretty basic.
Yes, that is a huge point of friction right now. Initially, the words seem to be, oh yeah, deleting sold items, that's fine.
Right, like that.
But we're hearing more and more reports from sellers saying they are getting flagged, even for just deleting a single item that sold somewhere else,
Seriously.
even if it's sold.
Apparently so.
Mhm.
It looks like the system, the algorithm they're using to catch rule breakers,
Yeah.
it's maybe a bit overzealous, casting a really wide net.
An algorithm making these calls. Okay, so how are they actually enforcing this? What does a penalty actually mean? Fines, suspensions.
So far, it mostly seems to be warnings first,
Yeah.
and then what sellers are calling soft bans.
Soft bans.
Yeah, like a temporary suspension, often for 7 days. You can't upload new listings during that time.
Mhm.
Maybe you can still interact with buyers on existing stuff, ship orders, answer questions, but no new items.
Okay, so it freezes your ability to add new inventory.
Exactly. And the really tricky part, it's automated. This algorithm is making the decisions, and it's pretty opaque. We don't know the exact triggers. Opaque. Yeah, that's not great when you're trying to just run your business properly. And you mentioned something about retroactive policing. What's that about? That sounds worrying.
It is worrying. We've seen reports, quite a few actually, of sellers getting flagged for actions they took before May 1st.
Before the rule even existed.
Yes, before the policy was officially active. It's like the rules changed, and now they're looking back and applying them to past actions.
Wow. Okay, I can see why people are upset. That feels fundamentally unfair.
It does, and understandably, it's causing a lot of anxiety. You think you're following the rules, and then bam, you get a warning for something you did weeks ago under the old system.
Yeah, that's tough. So beyond just being frustrating, how is this actually impacting sellers day-to-day, their workflow?
Well, the biggest thing is just confusion, massive confusion, and it's disrupting how people manage their inventory. Relisting used to be the strategy for many to get old items seen again.
Standard practice?
Totally. But now there's this fear. Fear of getting a soft ban means sellers are hesitant. Hesitant to relist, hesitant even to delete items sold elsewhere because they don't want to risk getting flagged accidentally.
So it's slowing things down, making basic inventory management harder.
For sure. And it's not just the big sellers,
Right.
Even people with smaller closets are struggling to track everything manually. Wait, when did I list this? Has it been 60 days? It's a headache.
Okay, Poshmark's official reason is keeping the marketplace fresh and fair, right? What's the vibe from sellers on that explanation? Are they buying it?
Skepticism is probably the polite word. The overwhelming feeling, judging by online discussions, is that this might be more about nudging sellers towards Poshmark's paid advertising, the promoted closet feature.
Ah, so the thinking is, if you can't easily refresh your listings for free anymore,
then maybe you'll be more inclined to pay Poshmark to promote them instead. That's the suspicion anyway. There's definitely a sense of a disconnect, a sort of public relations whiplash, as one seller put it. The official message doesn't quite match the reality sellers are facing.
Right. It definitely sounds like cross-listers, people selling on multiple sites, are in a particularly tight spot here.
Oh, absolutely. If you use tools to sync your inventory, services like Vendu, List Perfectly, Posture VA, or even automation helpers like Sidekick tools that streamline things, this policy throws a real wrench in the works.
How so, specifically?
The main issue is that risk we talked about getting flagged just for deleting an item that sold on another platform. Even though early signals suggested that was okay, it just breaks the workflow cross-listers depend on to avoid selling the same item twice.
Yeah, that's a fundamental part of cross-listing. So speaking of those automation tools, how are they handling this? Because a lot of sellers rely on them.
The tool providers are definitely aware. They have to be. They're working on adapting. Companies like Sidekick Tools, for example, they're designed to help with routine tasks, not really for like extreme bulk stuff. They're advising users, okay, set your relist timers to 60 days or even a bit longer, just to be safe.
So they're building in compliance checks.
Essentially, yes. Some are recommending letting their system handle the relisting only after 60 days and manage the delisting of sold items carefully to minimize any risk for the seller. They're trying to help users navigate this safely.
Okay, that's good to know they're adapting. So for everyone listening right now, selling on Poshmark, what are some practical, concrete things you can actually do to deal with this?
Okay, practical steps. First off, if you do get flagged and you think it's unfair, contact Poshmark support. Explain the situation clearly, provide context. Some sellers have had success appealing.
Okay, appeal if needed. What else?
Definitely avoid bulk deletions. Like, don't go deleting hundreds of listings at once. If you need to remove things, space it out. Do a few today, a few tomorrow.
Okay, slow and steady.
Yeah. Also, consider using the not for sale option instead of deleting, especially if you might want to relist it down the road.
Okay, like a temporary holding pattern.
Kind of, and obviously stick to that 60-day rule for actual delete and relist actions. That seems non-negotiable right now.
60 days is key.
If you need to do major closet clean out or changes, maybe use vacation mode. And really important for cross-listers, keep records. Order IDs, screenshots, anything to prove an item was deleted because it sold somewhere else, just in case you need to appeal.
Good advice. Keep the receipts, basically.
Exactly. And maybe, long-term, think about diversifying where you sell, too. Don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Always sound advice. Now, are people talking about any, let's say, unofficial ways around this, workarounds?
Yeah. There are whispers, people discussing things like, maybe just editing a listing slightly instead of deleting. Change a photo, tweak the title. Or using copy listing right at the 60-day mark and then maybe archiving the old one. But, and this is a big but, these are not guaranteed fixes. They're risky. Poshmark's algorithm is likely learning and adapting. What works today might get you flagged tomorrow. So proceed with extreme caution with any unofficial tricks.
Right. Relying on loopholes seems like a shaky foundation for your business.
Very shaky.
It really sounds like the seller community itself is super important right now. Sharing info, supporting each other.
That's massively. Sellers are really leaning on each other, comparing notes, sharing what works, what doesn't, offering moral support. It's crucial because there's still so much uncertainty about how this will play out long term, or if Poshmark might tweak the policy based on all this feedback.
Okay, so let's try and boil this down. If you had to give the key takeaways for sellers listening about these Poshmark changes, what would they be?
Number one, that 60-day rule for deleting and relisting is central. Don't mess with it.
Got it.
Number two, enforcement is automated, kind of murky, and sometimes inconsistent. Be aware of that.
Okay, the algorithm factor.
Yeah. Three, cross-listers are facing extra hurdles, especially with deleting sold items. Be extra careful there.
Right. Specific challenge for them.
And finally, just caution. Avoid bulk actions, err on the side of waiting longer than 60 days if you can, and keep good records.
It really underscores how vital it is to stay tuned in and be ready to adapt when you're selling online, doesn't it?
It really does. And it brings up a bigger question for you, the listener, to think about. How do you find that balance? Following the platform's rules versus doing what your business needs. What does this kind of policy shift tell us about where selling on these big platforms might be heading? It's definitely something to chew on, reflect on your own strategy, maybe chat with other sellers about how they're thinking.
That's a great point. Food for thought. Well, hopefully we've managed to shed some light on this Poshmark situation today, give you some clarity and practical steps without making your head spin.
Hope so.
Thanks for taking this deep dive with us.